Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm presenting build number 8. Wow, it's been a while. 8 builds already on the channel. And this is going to be one of my first ones is actually going to be using my favorite class in Dungeons & Dragons. So let's get started. The Herald of Vengeance. So this is a build that it's kind of going to be like the 4th edition Avenger class. And the Avenger was the Divine Striker, so the Divine Power Source damage dealer. And this build is kind of going to be kind of like Batman to some extent. You're going to have a lot of utility and kind of out of combat and stealth and that kind of thing that you're going to be able to have in addition to being able to do consistent damage per round as well as potentially some powerful burst. All right, so here is our agenda for today. I'll introduce and talk about the build concept. We'll talk about level 1, levels 2 through 6, levels 7 through 9, 10 through 13, and 14 through 17 before summarizing. And we will be doing damage reports at each of our key thresholds. So level 6, level 9, level 13, and level 17, where I'll kind of talk about what our tactics are and what kind of damage this character will be able to output. Now, if you've been on the channel for a while, as you know, I do a variety of content here, whether it's builds or mechanics and that kind of thing. And so if there's anything that you would like to cover or a build that you'd like to see me present or some ideas, please let me know in the comments and I will be happy to cover them. Now, introduction and build concept. What is kind of the goal of this build? So this is going to be a melee damage per round build. We're going to be utilizing a rapier and a shield. This is going to be, it's also somewhat inspired by the 4th edition Avenger class. And I think in 5th edition, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin subclass in particular is the closest thing to this subclass. Well, that class in particular. And this is a build that's actually mostly inspired by a past/current character I have, whose name is Arkash Doomsower. And Arkash is a black chromatic dragonborn, and he is a paladin and rogue multiclass. He's basically his story is that he was part of a death cult. He was basically an assassin, but he realized the error of his ways and pledged himself into the Raven's Queen's service and vowed to wipe out the cult of heretics that he was once part of. So he's thoughtful, intelligent, good at perception and stealth and that kind of thing. He's got a lot of things in his arsenal, and he is a dex-based paladin. Now, while this build is not going to do that, this build is inspired by kind of how I would build this character again if I had to do it a little differently. And yeah, he's a very fun and cool character, and this is almost an homage to him in some extent. So this build is going to be evasive, durable, and have lots of out-of-combat utility. We're going to have a pretty good armor class between our spells and our armor selection, and we're also this build is going to have like roguish utility, so cunning action and that kind of thing to get us in and out of combat. Now, the books that you'll need for this build, the Player's Handbook, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and the Monsters of the Multiverse book for the race that I'm going to be picking. So at level 1, we are starting as a warlock, actually. And there's a very particular reason for this, and it will become obvious pretty quickly. So as a warlock at level 1, we get proficiency with light armor and simple weapons, as well as wisdom saves and charisma saves. We also get our pact magic, which is our warlock specific spell casting. You basically, you get a smaller number of spell slots, but they come back on a short rest, and they're always all the same level. We also get our otherworldly patron, and our otherworldly patron is going to be the Hexblade. Now, I imagine kind of the story of this, you come from a background of kind of dark assassins and that kind of thing, or maybe infiltrators and that kind of thing, and part of that is you have a pact with this entity that presents itself to you in the form of a blade. Now, as a Hexblade, we get the Hex Warrior feature, which gives us proficiency with medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. So bye-bye light armor proficiency and simple weapon proficiency. We are going to be all set. This also lets us bond with a weapon over the course of a short rest, as long as it lacks the two-handed property, and we can make our attacks and damage rolls with that weapon using our charisma instead of our strength or our dexterity. And we're going to be leveraging this in particular. And if you've read a lot into Paladin Warlock builds, a lot of them will do this Hexblade dip to get this feature. Now I'm going to be starting with this because I want to be a little bit more dex focused, and we will need the dexterity for our rogue levels later. Otherwise, I would start Paladin on this and go strength with heavy armor. Now, so we have the other things that we get from our pact. We also get the Hexblade's Curse feature, which once per short rest lets us curse an enemy as a bonus action. And then when we damage that enemy, they take extra damage equal to our proficiency modifier, and we can crit them on a 19 or a 20. And if they die, we recover health based on our warlock level and our charisma modifier. And we're going to be using this as a rider on our attacks to get our damage per round up. Now, for our race, I'm going to be using the Shadar Kai race from Monsters of the Multiverse. They are an elf. They are kind of from the Shadowfell, bereft to the Raven Queen and have kind of gifts from her. And there's a very particular reason why I'm picking this race, namely, they're an elf. Now, I want to be using, like past builds, I'm planning on using the Elven Accuracy feat on this build. So other races that could work well here are Half Elf, maybe a Dark Elf Drow, or the Eladrin Elf from Monsters of the Multiverse, or just about any other elf is what I would use for this build. And Arkash is a black chromatic dragonborn. So if you want to exactly replicate that character, you'll take things a little bit differently. And I would use the Fizzbands version of the Dragonborn if you want to do that. Now, but what do the Shadar Kai get? So the Shadar Kai get Blessing of the Raven Queen. So this lets us proficiency times bonus per long rest. We can teleport 30 feet as a bonus action. And this feature improves at character level 3. We also get Dark Vision out to a range of 60 feet. We have a normal speed, and we're a humanoid, and we're medium sized and that kind of thing. We have Fate Ancestry, and their Fate Ancestry gives them advantage on saving throws to avoid or resist the charm condition. They get racial proficiency in the Perception feature. They also get, well, in the Perception skill, they also get resistance to necrotic damage, and they have the Monsters of the Multiverse version of Trance. So in addition to normal, like the normal elf thing where you only need like 4 hours of sleep and you're aware and that kind of thing, they also get to learn any 2 weapon or skill proficiencies every long rest, and you can swap them out at will. So I'm going to be using this feature to kind of cover some of our early tool proficiencies that we're going to be lacking. Now, as for our starting stats, we're using point buy as always. We are getting a 13 in Dex, a 13 in and putting a +1 there. We're also getting a 13 in Charisma. This is in Strength. This is a minimum requirement for Paladin. You need 13 Strength and Charisma, so we're putting a 13 there for that reason. I'm getting a 14 in Constitution, and a 15 in Charisma with our +2 there, and the last point is going into Wisdom. Now, if you are going to be taking a Half Elf, you can boost your Wisdom to 10 because you can drop your Constitution down a point and then put your other +1 there. But if you're doing any of the races that are +2, +1, this is the stat spread I would do. Now, if you want to do the Dragonborn in particular, I would actually drop our Charisma to 4. Well, I would take a +1 away from Charisma and probably start with a 16. Then drop the Constitution, put a +1 over there. That gives us 2 more points, and then we can bump our Wisdom up, potentially. That is also an option that you can do, and if you want a higher Wisdom, you can always drop your Constitution score by a point or 2. Yeah, that is what we're going to be doing with our starting stats, and our hit point to this level would be 8 plus our Constitution modifier, so for a total of 10. Now, I do want to talk about skill proficiencies on this character. This is not something I normally talk about, but because this character in particular is going to be, the skills are very important to how they function out of combat and that kind of thing, I want to talk about what I would do. So I would take the Charlatan background. This gives us proficiency in Sleight of Hand and Deception, as well as the Disguise Kit and the Forgery Kit. Now, again, I'm specifically not taking Thieves' Tools because we're going to get it later with a multi-class dip. So I would use your Trance racial proficiencies to get Thieves' Tool proficiencies for now. We also get perception from our race as a proficiency, and then for our ones from our class, we have Arcana, Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, and Religion available. Now, I would pick Deception and Investigation, and the reason why we're picking Deception is if you have an overlap between skills between your background and your class, you can instead pick any skill that you want from your background. So because we already have Deception from our class, we can therefore get rid of Deception from our Charlatan background and get Stealth proficiency. So therefore we've got Sleight of Hand, Stealth, Perception, Deception, and Investigation. And this character is going to be kind of set up to be that investigator. They're good at perceiving. They're sneaky. They're good with their sleight of hand and that kind of thing. Very almost like Batman in that way. All right, but and for our spells, as a warlock, we get 2 spells, and I would specifically take the Booming Blade cantrip, and I would also take Eldritch Blast. Now, you don't have to take Eldritch Blast. We're not going to be taking more than 1 warlock level on this character for the scope of the build that I'm going to be covering, and getting Minor Illusion instead for kind of that distraction, stealth assist feature could actually be really nice, and I would highly consider taking it here. As a first level warlock, we get 1 spell slot at first level that comes back on a short rest, and we get to know 2 spells. The main one we want here is Shield. Your other one, you could take Hex. It is okay. I probably wouldn't. I would honestly take Armor of Agathis as our second spell, and just as a kind of as a temporary hit point boost and something to buffer our health a little bit. But you can pick what you want for your second one. The main thing we want here is Shield, which is from the Warlock subclass list. As far as starting equipment, we want to do gold buy here because the Warlock doesn't really get stuff that's helpful for us. So we want to get Scale Mail, a Shield, and a Rapier. Potentially you want to get a Holy Symbol because we're going to be going into Paladin later and you're going to want that on your shield. And we also want a component pouch or an arcane focus of some kind so we can cast our Warlock spells that require a material component, if we have any. You might not need that. And honestly, it's not going to be that big of a deal because Shield, which is going to be our main Warlock spell that we want, only has a vocal component. All right, at level 2, we have kind of, maybe we've given up the ways of our death cult, or maybe we are going deeper and potentially swearing an oath to it, but we are going Paladin now. We meet the requirements to multiclass because we have at least 13 charisma and 13 strength. And as a first level Paladin, we get the Divine Sense feature, which number of times equal to our Paladin level plus our charisma modifier. We can sense undead and fiends and that kind of thing. This is mostly a ribbon flavor feature, and it's kind of nice. And then we get the Lay on Hands feature. This is a feature that scales with our Paladin level. We have a number of Lay on Hands points equal to 5 times our Paladin level. And as an action, we can restore any number of those points to ourselves or another creature. And that's just straight healing. And we can spend 5 points to cure a disease as well. And this is a great extra hit point buffer. I would use this out of combat primarily, or pump 1 point in to get allies down. It does take your action, and it's not the most efficient thing to do, but it's something that we have, and it's going to be useful throughout our career. Now, at Paladin level 2, we get our fighting style, and this is going to be dueling. This gives us a +2 bonus to damage rolls if we're holding a weapon in one hand and don't have a weapon in our other hand. So this works with a weapon plus shield, so this will give us +2 damage to all of our rolls, which is great. We also get the Paladin spell casting feature here, and we can prepare a number of spells equal to half our Paladin level, minimum of 1, rounded down, plus our charisma modifier. So this is going to be 4 at this level. We also get Divine Smite, which lets us spend a spell slot when we hit to deal damage, a number of d8s of radiant damage equal to 1 plus the spell's slots level. So right now that would be 2d8 on a Smite, and our Lay on Hands improves. And as a 3rd level character, our Blessing of the Raven Queen feature from Shadar Kai improves, and now when we teleport, we get resistance to all damage until the start of our next turn. This will make us very tanky when we use it, and that is great. As for the spells that we will pick, Paladin is a half caster, so and they are a prepared spellcaster. So they know all their spells. You have access to all the ones on the list at all times. But the main ones that we want here, I'm going to say Bless and Command are probably our best ones. Bless is going to be the best use of our concentration at this level. offensively. And I would also consider preparing Shield of Faith and Thunderous Smite for utility and defense and that kind of thing. But prepare what you want. We're mostly here for Bless. That's going to be our primary use in combat. Now, at level 4, we are a Paladin 3. We get the Divine Health feature, which makes us immune to like disease. It's nice. It's a nice ribbon feature, and if you're doing any campaign where disease is a big deal, if you're a 3rd level Paladin, you don't care anymore. We also get the Harness Divine Power feature, which lets us use our Channel Divinity to recover a spell slot of level equal to half our proficiency modifier, rounded up. And so that's going to be a 1st level spell slot back. That does burn our Channel Divinity, which we get from our Sacred Oath. Now, the oath on this character is going to be Vengeance. Maybe we're declaring vengeance against the enemies of our cult or against the cult itself, depending on how our story went. But we are driven by a righteous, or what we believe is righteous anger, and that's going to be a key thing on this character and this build. Now, as a 3rd level Paladin with an oath, we get specific oath spells. So all Paladins get a couple spells per level of spell slot that they always have prepared. We also get our Channel Divinity, which we can use once per short rest. We have a couple feat options here. The first one is our Abjure Enemy, which we can use to make an enemy make a wisdom save. And if they fail, they're frightened. And if they succeed, their speed is halved and that kind of thing. And Undead and Fiends have disadvantage on this. And that's nice, but you're probably not going to be using that. And it's not my main thing. We are mainly here for our Vow of Enmity. And this lets us pick an enemy within 10 feet of us, and we get advantage on all our attack rolls against them. It's a bonus action to use, and again, it comes back on a short rest. Now, this is a single target ability and uses a bonus action, but I'm going to be planning on using this throughout the course of our career as a way to enhance our damage. As for our spells, we get another 1st level spell slot here. And the spells that we get from our subclass that are always prepared are Bane and Hunter's Mark. I would highly recommend skipping Hex if you were even thinking about it, because Hunter's Mark is very similar and we will get it for free here. Again, we're probably planning on using Bless, but Hunter's Mark is good as a damage rider at this level if you want to, especially if the enemies have low armor class, and Bane can help out your allies and that kind of thing. So both good spells, but Bless is going to be our main one. At level 5, we are a Paladin 4, and we get our first ability score increase or feat, and yes, we are getting Elven Accuracy now and boosting our Charisma. So what this does is, in addition to boosting your Dexterity, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma by 1, it also makes it so that if you make an attack and with any of those 4 stats, and you have advantage, you get to reroll one of the dice once. So this gives you what I call super advantage, where when we have advantage, we now basically get to roll 3d20s and pick the best one. When combined with our Hexblade's Curse that lets us crit on a 19 or a 20 against our target, this will mean that any one of our attacks has about a 27% critical chance, assuming that we have advantage on the roll. And that's going to be a big deal. We also get a... We can prepare a few more Paladin spells here because our Paladin level went up and our Charisma modifier went up. And honestly, pick your favorite, but we just want to make sure that we have Bless prepared. Now, at level 5, we are a Paladin... Well, character level 6, we are a Paladin 5, and that means we get extra attacks. So now when we attack, we get 2 attacks instead of 1 with the attack action. And this is great. One of the great things about being a half-caster with this feature at level 5 is it really makes you effective in dealing damage. We also get another 1st level spell slot here, and we get 2nd level spells and slots. There are a lot of good ones. Well, there are not that many good ones at 2nd level, but from our subclass, we get Hold Person and Misty Step, which are both great. Misty Step we probably won't be using as much because we have the Racial Teleport, which we can now... We could use 3 times last level, but and still 3 times this level. But the main thing that we want to prepare here is Find Steed. This is a 2nd level Paladin spell. You get to summon yourself a warhorse, and it follows you around and doesn't take concentration or anything. And I'm going to be assuming that we cast this on a prior day and our horse is just with us. You can put armor on your horse and that kind of thing, and you can ride it around and control it in combat, and it'll be your friend. And so I'm going to be assuming that we have the warhorse going forward. Now, there's another important feature of the Find Steed spell, and that is that if you cast a spell while riding your horse that targets only you, you can also target the horse with it. So, for example, if we cast Shield of Faith on ourselves, we could potentially also target our steed and give our steed a health boost. I believe it also works with the smite spells, not smells, that you cast on yourself. So if you potentially cast, thunderous smite on yourself while you're riding your horse, your war horse could also smite with its hooves. And that's just something that's cool, but we're not going to be planning on using that feature just yet. But at level 6, it's time for our first damage report. So what do our tactics look like at this level? Now, a key thing when I was designing this build and when I'm designing most builds, I don't give myself more than one round of setup. So whatever I'm doing needs to start on our second turn in combat or sooner and continue from there. So therefore, in the first round, we're going to cast Bless. We're going to put our Hexblade's Curse on our target, and we're going to dismount our Warhorse. We might run up to the enemy. Our Warhorse might run up and hoof them, that kind of thing. But in round 2, we're going to use our Vow of Enmity with our bonus action. We're going to run in and we're going to attack our target twice. And if we get a crit, we are going to apply our Divine Smite. And we are going to continue doing that every single round. Now, we don't have a consistent use of our bonus action, but that is okay. So we have all our setup is complete by the second round, and we are doing our damage per round, and therefore we meet my qualifications for how I do our setup. So what does our damage look like here? So we've got 2 rapier attacks with a +7 +1d4 to hit from our Bless with our Elven Accuracy super advantage, so 3 dice rolls. We have this because the Vow of Enmity always gives us advantage against our target. Each of these is doing 1d8 +9 piercing damage and crits on a 19/20. This +9, it's +4 from Charisma, +3 from our Proficiency, from our Hexblade's Curse, and +2 from the Dueling Fighting Style. We'll also be applying our second level Smites on crits, so that's going to be 3d8, but I'm only doing this on a crit, so I believe it should be sustainable. And we're not going to get that many, but it's fairly likely, given we have a 27% chance of getting a crit on any one hit, that we'll probably get some over the course of our combat encounter. Our Warhorse will also be attacking our target, and I'm assuming that we're going to be having it as one of our blessed targets. In reality, it might be better to bless an ally instead, but this means our Warhorse has a +6 +1d4 to hit and does 2d6 +4 damage with its hooves. The horse also has a charge attack that it can use and might be able to get a second attack as a bonus action, but I'm not going to be guaranteeing that in the calculations, so I did not account for it. So what does our damage look like against an enemy with an armor class of 10 and +0 to their saves? We would do 54.8 damage per round, and against an enemy with an AC of 15 or +5 to their saves, we would do 52.1 damage per round. Now, compared to other damage per round builds I've done at this point, this is very similar to my fighter baseline builds, the Crossbow Expert and the Polearm Master ones. It's a little worse against the low armor class, but much better against the high armor class. This is significantly more damage than my Living Anvil Cleric build, but it is losing by just a little bit, about 5 points of damage, to the Hedge Trimmer build that grabbed enemies and dragged them back and forth in the spike growth with super speed. But it is still doing very well, and this is quite respectable for this level, and I would be very happy with this. Now, there are some limitations, obviously. Once our initial target dies, we don't have our Hexblade's Curse or our Vow of Enmity anymore. And so that's a pretty big stipulation, is that this damage per round, you're going to want to basically pick the biggest, hardest to kill enemy, ignore all others, and pursue them until they die. And that's basically how this build is going to be planning to function. You're going to pick the big bad, and you're going to kill them. All right, now at level 7, we are going to be taking our little side detour into Rogue. And this is something I wanted to have sooner rather than later, and I know it delays some really, really nice Paladin levels. And if I'm being honest, Paladin is a really hard class to multi-class out of, and I'll talk more about this at the end of the video in the summary. But nonetheless, I want to take the Rogue levels now. We qualify for this because we meet our Paladin and Warlock attribute requirements, as well as the 13 minimum dex that we have. I should mention, this build is going to be using medium armor. You're probably going to go for either a breastplate or maybe a mithril half plate, something that will hopefully cancel out your stealth disadvantage from wearing the best medium armor, something like that, because we want to be good at stealth. Now, as a first level rogue, when you multi-class into rogue, you get proficiency with a skill from the rogue list, as well as thieves tools. So I would potentially pick athletics, insight, but I think the one I'd pick on this build would probably be persuasion. We're probably going to be a pretty smooth talker with our high charisma, and it'd be nice to have proficiency in that skill. The reason I delayed getting thieves tools from other backgrounds and features and that kind of thing was so I could get it here. So now you can use your racial trance proficiencies for something else. We also get expertise as a first level rogue. This lets us double our proficiency bonus to a couple skills of our choice, and I would probably take stealth and perception here. Our main thing is we want to be sneaky and we want to be able to spot things. We also get sneak attack, which if we have if we meet the conditions, we can apply an extra 1d6 once per turn. Doesn't have to be our turn, importantly, to our attacks as long as we're using a ranged or finesse weapon. And even though we're using our charisma for our attacks, we're using a rapier as our weapon, so we meet the qualifications for this. And because of Vow of Enmity giving us advantage against our target, we will always be able to proc it reliably, and even if we don't have that up, we should be able to have our war horse next to our enemy, and if an enemy is in order to qualify, we need to have advantage or an ally within 5 feet, and the ally can be your own horse. We also get the ribbon feature of Thieves' Cant, which is basically like you can understand the secret language of rogues and criminals and charlatans and that kind of thing. Now, at level 8, we are continuing in Rogue, kind of mastering our some skills that we had forgotten and had languishing, and we get the Cunning Action feature. And this lets us dash, disengage, or potentially even hide as a bonus action. And this is really nice. We haven't really had that of a consistent use of our bonus action up to this point, other than teleporting. But now we've got, the disengage and the dash to close distance and that kind of thing. So this will just make us even more mobile, even more slippery. We're going to be teleporting, disengaging, bobbing and weaving, and ducking in and out of combat a lot. And yeah, it's going to be great. Now, at level 3, we are a Rogue 3. That means our sneak attack improves to 2d6, and we also get our Roguish Archetype. Now, there's a lot of ones that are potentially good and flavorful on this build. Now, I wanted to be faithful to my original character of Arcash, and I'm going to be taking Assassin here. This gives us proficiency in a couple of kits, and it gives us the Assassinate feature, which gives us advantage in the first round against any targets that haven't acted yet. And if we attack any enemy that is surprised, it's an automatic crit. Now, Assassin is very hard to use consistently in a real game. And the main reason I want this it's mainly because it's true to what my character did, but also this gives us what I call the surprise smite. So in that situation where you are able to get surprise, you get guaranteed crits, which means you can get guaranteed double damage smites and just pump all your spell slots in and annihilate your target. They will probably die. That said, again, this subclass is only good if you can do that, and it doesn't really factor into our damage per round. And so there's a lot of other ones that are potentially good that you could take here. Something like Mastermind, which lets you help an ally from range as a bonus action, could be really fun, especially because we don't have a good use of our bonus action. Phantom can give you a little bit of extra damage and another skill proficiency. Arcane Trickster gives you more spell slots, and will also give you some nice utility cantrips and spells like Find Familiar, which could be very helpful. You could have your horse and your owl. Swashbuckler can make you even more slippery by basically giving you a key feature of the mobile feat, etc. There's a lot of other rogue subclasses you could use, and honestly, pick your favorite. I'm going Assassin because it's true to Arcash's story, as well as having that ability to do those surprise smites. Now, on level 9, it is indeed time for our next damage report. So what have we gotten since last time that's going to help us with our damage per round? Our sneak attack, we have sneak attack that is 2d6, and our proficiency modifier has gone up by 1, which will increase the damage from our Hexblade's Curse. Now, we have gotten a lot of utility and flexibility through our Cunning Action, as well as the potential ability to do those surprise smites. Now, I'm not going to be including those in our damage per round calculations because it's not reliable, but if and when you can pull that off, it's going to be really fun. So our tactics are pretty much the same as last time. We're just going to be applying our sneak attack once per turn. And yeah, our damage, again, is very similar. We just have that extra sneak attack, and our proficiency modifier is a little higher. Importantly, if we do get a crit, we can potentially hold our sneak attack until our last attack, or just apply it on our first attack that crits to try to get that those damage dice to double. So, against an enemy with an armor class of 10 at this level, we would do 65.7 damage per round, and against an enemy with an armor class of 16, it would be 62.4. And this is an increase of about 10 points in both cases, and that's about 20%. One of the cool things about this build in particular is because we have that elven accuracy, we're going to be super accurate, and we're going to be landing this damage very consistently. Again, note the numbers are slightly inflated if you don't smite. But assuming that you only smite on a crit, you're going to be doing some pretty darn good damage per round on average. It's going to be a little spiky based on whether or not you actually get those crits, but you should be critting somewhat reliably. I would expect potentially every other turn. All right, now at level 10, we are going back to Paladin, and we're going to be here for the rest of our career. Our character is done with their little training in sneakiness and assassinating, and is now going to be going back to their I am very angry in my righteous anger roots. So at Paladin 6, we get the main, one of the best features in the game, actually, the Aura of Protection from Paladin. This gives you and all allies within 10 feet of you a bonus to all their saving throws equal to your Charisma modifier. So that'll be +4. This is even on saves you're already proficient with. So our Charisma save at this level would be +12. Our Wisdom save at this level would be +7, and our Constitution save at this level would be +6. And this is just very strong and very solid, and this will make you very durable, and anyone that sticks with you also very durable. And our lay on hands continues to scale. At level 11, we are at Paladin 7. This gives us the Relentless Avenger feature, which makes our opportunity attacks better in that when we make an opportunity attack, we can also move half of our speed without provoking opportunity attacks. So this will let us potentially stick to that big bad a lot better, and we get some more second level spell slots here. At level 12, we're going to be a Paladin 8, and I'm going to be bumping our Charisma to 20. Not only does this improve our attack and damage rolls, but it also improves all of our saves thanks to Aura of Protection. And this is really, really good. And because of Hexblade and the Hex Warrior feature, we are single attribute dependent on Charisma, and we've now capped it. So I'm very happy with that. At level 13, we are a Paladin 9, and importantly, we now get third level spells and slots. There are a lot of good third level Paladin spells like Spirit Shroud for an extra d8 of damage on hit, or Aura of Vitality to provide up on average of 70 healing out of combat, or Revivify to bring back a dead ally. Again, lots of good ones. But as a Vengeance Paladin, we specifically get haste and protection from energy from our subclass. And I'm actually going to be planning on using haste going forward on this character. Now, when you are under the effect of the haste spell, you get +2 to your armor class. You get an extra action each turn, but if that action can only be used to, I think, like attack, dash, disengage, or use an object, and the attack is one attack only, even if you have the extra attack feature. It also doubles your speed, and when you lose concentration on it, you basically lose your next turn. Now, importantly, because of how Fine Steed works, and any spell that we cast that targets only ourselves while mounted on our steed can also target our steed. Therefore, if we cast haste at the beginning of combat while we're mounted, it will also apply to our horse. So, and it's time for our next damage report. So let's see what that hasted warhorse with our hasted paladin self can do, huh? So we've gained the haste spell. We now have third level spell slots to smite with. Our charisma is 20 and our proficiency is 5. And for defensive features, we've got Aura of Protection going and our Relentless Avenger to help us stick on our targets. Half our speed when our speed is doubled is our full speed. So that'll be great. So here are our tactics now. In our first round, we're going to cast haste while we're mounted. So our horse will also be hasted. We're going to apply our Hexblade's Curse, dismount our warhorse, and probably run up and attack our target. In the second round, we're going to do our Vow of Enmity on our target, run in and attack it 3 times, 2 times from extra attack and 1 time from our extra feature. Now, potentially, if you want to be a little cheesier here, you could ready an attack. There is an option here to use your main action to ready an attack, so you could apply sneak attack on your other turn, because it wouldn't be your turn. You could apply it again. But if you do this, you only get you don't get to take advantage of extra attack. So you're still going to be getting, I believe, yeah, you're only going to be getting 2 attacks with sneak attack versus 3 attacks with 1 sneak attack, and I think 3 attacks is better. So we're going to use our action to attack twice, and then use our extra action from haste to attack once. Again, applying Divine Smite on crits and our sneak attack. And we'll be doing that every round from there on out. So our damage at this point, we've got 3 rapier attacks with a plus 10 to hit with our super elven accuracy, doing 1d8 plus 12 each. They crit on a 19 or 20, and we've got our 2d6 sneak attack. We also have our 4d8 Divine Smite on crit, thanks to having 3rd level spell slots, and our Warhorse now attacks twice. It doesn't have that Bless bonus, but 2 attacks without Bless is better than 1 attack with Bless in most cases. So, against an enemy with an armor class of 10, we would do 110.8 damage per round, and against an enemy with an armor class of 17, it would be 101.5. And we've broken the 100 damage per round barrier at level 13 with 4 levels to go, and I'm very happy with this. Now, since last time, we've gained 45 points against the lower armor class and 39 points against the higher armor class, so increases of 69%, nice, and 63% respectively. Now, on level 14, we're continuing to go in Paladin. We get the Aura of Courage feature, which makes us and our allies basically immune to fear. Great, not super strong, but situationally can be really, really good. At level 15, we are a Paladin 11. This gets us the improved Divine Smite feature, so now all of our attacks do an extra 1d8 radiant damage on hit. We also get an extra 3rd level spell slot here, or is it a 3rd level smite slot? At level 16, we'd be a Paladin 12, and we get another ability score increase or feat here, and I'm going to take Warcaster. Now, what this does is it gives us advantage on our concentration checks, so we have plus 7 to those saves, now plus 7 with advantage. It also means that we don't need a free hand. If all our hands are occupied by, say, a shield and a sword, we can still provide somatic components for our spells. And this will let us cast spells with vocal and somatic components without needing to sheath anything. But it also lets us cast a spell when an enemy provokes an opportunity attack. So now if your target tries to run away, you can Booming Blade them, which we've had forever. And that will not only will we be able to sneak attack them because it wasn't our turn, but they will take damage from running away. And because we are a relentless avenger, we can continue to chase them, which is great. Finally, at level 17, we are a 13th level Paladin, and this means 4th level Paladin spells and potentially smite slots. And while we get Banishment and Dimension Door from our subclass, the main one I'm really excited about here is Find Greater Steed. This is a better version of the Find Steed spell. You can't have both the Found Steed and the Found Greater Steed at the same time, but importantly, this gives us a Griffin to ride instead of a Warhorse. Now, I'm going to assume that we cast this on a prior day and thus have our 4th level slot available. But importantly, the Griffin gets 2 attacks instead of 1. And is a lot healthier and can fly and that kind of thing. So we are now going to be riding that buddy into battle instead. It's time for our last damage report, and what has changed since last time? We have found a Greater Steed and a Griffin. We've got an improved Divine Smite for that extra 1d8 of damage on hit, and we have higher level spell slots and a proficiency of 8, and we've also proficiency of 6. And we've also gained the Warcaster feat for that advantage on concentration and that potential Booming Blade opportunity attack. So our tactics are pretty much the same, except now we're going to be working with our Griffin instead of our Warhorse. We have 3 rapier attacks that have gained an extra d8 of damage each. We have a 1 5d8 smite and a bunch of 4d8 smites, and our Griffin, which is hasted because the Find Greater Steed also has that same line where any spell you cast while mounted that targets only you can also target the mount. So we get 1 attack with the Griffin's beak and 2 attacks with the Griffin's claws. So what does our damage look like here? So against an enemy with an armor class of 10, it would be 145.6 damage per round, and against an enemy with an armor class of 18, it would be 131.4 damage per round. Since last time, this is an increase of right about 30%, being around 30 points. And while this isn't as significant as last time, this is still really good, and I'm very happy with this. And yeah, so it's time to move into our summary. Let's kind of conclude and talk about the build overall. So what is the overall score of this build? So to do this, I take all our numbers and all our damage reports and I average them together. And we get a 90.5. Now, where this lands in terms of my other builds, we are better than the Living Anvil. That one I think was around 70. We are better than both of my baseline damage per round builds, which are pure fighters. Those are in the 60s, but we are about 10 points behind the Hedge Trimmer build. At least the damage per round version. Now, in particular, that build, we are actually doing better than it once we get to level 13, but its strength at the early levels is kind of what carries it. But yeah, I'm overall very happy with where this build landed. Now, if I was going to take this version of the build to 20 with 3 more levels, I would probably take a couple more levels of Rogue to pick up that ability score increaser feat and get the reaction feature that lets us have damage, which is called, oh gosh, I don't know why I'm blanking on it, but Uncanny Dodge, yes. So we would get Uncanny Dodge, and then I'd pick up a couple invocations from Warlock, probably. Maybe Agonizing Blast or something like that, just to kind of get that utility, and then also gets us another first level spell slot that comes back on a short rest. That's how I would probably do take this version of the build to 20. More Paladin levels is nice, but not really required. And you could take more Paladin levels to get more spell slots, and that could also be good. What if you wanted to do a heavier Rogue version of this build? Now, I would probably start this version pretty much exactly the same, but I'd only take Paladin level 6. And then I would take Rogue the rest of the way, and I would probably take Arcane Trickster to continue scaling our spell slots just so we have more things to smite with. This build is not going to get the same amount of spell slots as this build is, and your Fine Steed is not going to be as good, but you will have more sneak attack damage and more of that roguish utility and that kind of thing if that's something you're really interested in. What about other rogue subclasses? Yeah, like I discussed, I don't think Assassin is ideal, but it kind of fits the theme, and you have the potential for those surprise smites. But yeah, I would probably honestly do Mastermind, Swashbuckler. Those would probably be my top choices, along with potentially Arcane Trickster. That would make us a slightly higher level caster and give us a few more spells. I think if I was just doing the 3-level dip, I think Arcane Trickster might be the way to go. Now, compared to what if those 3 levels were just Paladin levels instead? And this version of the build, honestly, is probably going to be better, specifically because we can, say, use Polearm Master with a Spear or Quarterstaff and Hex Warrior and have that bonus action attack available. If I was going to do that, we would use Heavy Armor, drop that Dex score low, and get that Strength probably to 15 or 16 to be able to use the best Heavy Armor without penalty. This version of the build is going to have probably higher damage, but you're not going to have that out-of-combat utility that this version of the build is going to have. You're not going to be sneaky. You're not going to be able to provide that kind of perception or sleight of hand lockpicking that this build can. If you have a rogue in your party already, I wouldn't do a character like this, but if you don't, this character not only does better damage than a rogue, but also has all of the healing abilities and support of the Paladin. Now, important thing to talk about with this build in particular, and this is something that Vengeance Paladins can potentially struggle with, is having too many bonus actions. You've got a lot of different things that you can do, but only one bonus action per turn. And if you have too much to do to potentially get yourself all set up, the fight can be over by the time your damage is at its max potential. So say at the beginning, when we have our Hexblade's Curse and our Vow of Enmity, and say we're going to cast Hunter's Mark, that takes 3 rounds to set up completely. Like by the 3rd round, we're going to be doing full damage, but it takes a long time to get going. And by that time, you might have like already been able to kill the enemy, or they might already be very close to dead. And now, while we don't have anything else to do with our bonus action on this version of the build, if you were playing, that Polearm Master version that's got a spear and a shield, you potentially could have been making attacks a little bit sooner. And so you have to judge for yourself whether it's worth it to set up for a longer fight, or just to do as much damage as you can as quickly as you can to potentially end the fight before that other build could even ramp up. Now, Arcash, what he did, he's currently a level 19 character, and he's a Paladin 14, Rogue 5. Probably going to, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the last level on him. It might be, Rogue 6. But he, in particular, he is Dex focused and does not have the Hexblade dip. And he is a very cool character, and that's kind of what he did. And this version of the build ultimately ended up a lot like that, except I traded like one of those Paladin levels for the Hexblade level to have that better aura of protection. Arkash's charisma is not as good as his dexterity, and that is a little bit of a weakness of his. He also doesn't have the shield spell, which is very helpful on this version of the build. So yeah, overall, I'm very pleased with where our Shadar Kai Avenger Herald of Vengeance arrived at. And overall, this build was pretty fun and pretty cool to make, and it was fun to kind of reminisce about this character and just kind of his journey and share the idea with all of you guys. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really enjoyed making this video, and please let me know what you thought about it in the comments. And again, thanks for watching. My name is Nathan, and I will see you next time.